I don't think that it's new. I think there's probably, I don't know, if I was going to hazard a guess, I would say I would at least expect that half of you are doing same-day starts. That would be my assumption. I hope that it's at a minimum of half of you that are doing same-day starts. If it isn't, then I think you're missing out on an opportunity for practice growth that is extraordinary. And same-day starts aren't technically difficult. They aren't, if done properly and with the right staff attitude, they're not even a strain on the practice. Before we dive into how I do same-day starts, I wanted to give you just a little brief 1 minute and 40-second glimpse into my practice. I'm going to back it up so we didn't have anything.
The main concern that almost every individual has, from adults to younger individuals.
Here, I'll start. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Dr. John Graham, and I'm an orthodontist practicing in Salt Lake City, Utah. The main concern that almost every individual has, from adults to younger individuals, is their aesthetic outcome. That's my primary goal for any and every patient. Being an orthodontist gives me a tremendous sense of pride. I see patients who come in not feeling confident about their smiles, and they finish treatment with us, and their entire life has changed. They are confident, they are happy, they feel like they can genuinely smile anytime that they have an opportunity to do so. And being a part of that, for me, is almost indescribable. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
So, I mentioned this quote a couple of times yesterday, and it's so, it's a very poignant thought. I mentioned yesterday that this Voltaire quote, it's applicable to religion, politics, orthodontics, parenting. If you think about your life, I think you could find yourself shackled with chains somewhere in your life that not only are you shackled with unnecessarily, but you actually honor and revere those chains and willingly accept the limitations that those chains put on you. And I'm constantly seeking for opportunities to identify my own chains and to try to just release them and see what happens. I did that in my professional practice when I moved from Arizona about 6 years ago. I had been there for a decade practicing in a very large practice. I was seeing about 135 to 140 patients a day, 4 days a week. I had a satellite. I had an incredible staff, which was one of the reasons I could do that, but it was exhausting. And the whole reason that I moved out of being a surgeon into being an orthodontist was because of lifestyle. And I just traded one very hectic lifestyle for another. So I took the opportunity when I decided, my family and I decided to move from Phoenix, Arizona to Salt Lake City. I took that opportunity to just totally reinvent myself. Totally reinvent the way that I looked at my profession and how I practiced. I will tell you now, I've never been happier in my professional career. I practice 3 days a week, and I see no more. We have a fairly rigid policy that I see no more than 55 patients a day. Sometimes it gets a little more than that, but not intentionally. And that is such a sweet spot for me because I know every patient. I know their names. I know their first and last names. I know about them. They know that I know about them. It is a marvelous, it's a marvelous trajectory to set myself and my staff on because we know that the service that we're going to deliver is outstanding. And it's one of the things that I want to chat with you about for a few minutes today on the concept of doing same-day starts. There are things that you have to identify, and then you have to magnify once those identifying points have been made. And I'll show you some of the metrics and some of the tools that I've used to help identify those things, because I am not in any way, shape, or form a businessman. I am just not. That's not my strength. It's not my joy. My joy is treating patients and striving to be a very good orthodontist. One of the things that Jamie Reynolds taught me, and Jamie he's going to think that I'm just saying this because he's standing there, but he's one of the most extraordinary minds I've ever met, because he has a lot of skill sets. One of his best skill sets is surrounding himself with extraordinary people that he is able to capitalize on in a positive way. And one of the things that Jamie pounds into people is that you need to find your niche. If you don't have a niche, you need to find one. Because if you have no niche, you have no rudder. That's so critical in your community if you want to be the leader in the community of orthodontic treatment. So you need to find it. I'll just share with you what my niche is, because everybody's is going to be a little different. I moved from being a very busy urban practice in Phoenix, Arizona, to moving to another city, a smaller one, Salt Lake, right in the heart of Salt Lake City. And I mean right in the heart of the city. I'm not in the suburbs. And so I needed to differentiate myself because there were plenty of orthodontists there. It is an amazingly aggressive market in Salt Lake and in Utah. There are some great orthodontists. There are also some vicious individuals there. Not all of them, but there are some. So the three things that I wanted to focus on were being a true boutique practice. And I don't mean just giving a lip service by offering coffee in the corner and considering myself a boutique practice. I really wanted to make the practice something that when the patient walked in, they were completely disoriented. And it's happened. I've been able to do that. I've had several patients that either come off of the elevator or walk up the stairs and turn around and go back down because they thought they were in the wrong spot, because it doesn't represent what image they had in their mind of a dental office. So I really wanted to make it boutique. I wanted it to be high-end, not only in the results that I provided, but I wanted it to be high-end from the beginning to the end. I really wanted, and not in an arrogant way, I just wanted people to go there feeling like it doesn't get any better than this. I have no doubt that there is no other orthodontic office I could possibly go to that is going to make me feel more richly rewarded for the money I'm spending than this one. And I think we've accomplished that. And then mind-bending service. Everybody thinks they're service-oriented. Everybody talks about being service-oriented. And Jamie allowed me to share a couple of his slides out of his deck on an amazing full-day lecture that he and Jeff Kozlowski give on the business of orthodontics. And this upcoming slide is part of that. And it's that in a Bain & Company study, well, nope, that's not it. I'll get to that in just a second. Let me go here. It's coming up. Everybody wait for it. There's my office, by the way. I bought a crack house. That's the truth. There were needles on the floor. There were sleeping bags on the floor. I happened to be on a corner here that is one of the most highly trafficked corners in Salt Lake, in a very nice part of town. 64,000 cars drive past this office between the hours of 8 o'clock and 5 p.m. 64,000. 50% of my practice is from drive-by, seeing my sign over and over again. There's 6 lanes in one street, 6 lanes in the other. So I wanted to make sure that this office became a landmark in Salt Lake City. I told the builder, I designed the office myself, but I told the builder, I want people to use this office when they're giving directions in Salt Lake. I want people to say, go to Graham Orthodontics building and turn left. And that's starting to happen, and it makes me very, very happy. Everything on the inside was geared towards changing this attitude of being not a dental office. Some of you saw me yesterday talking about the fact that this is my lobby, this is the waiting room, and that's the first treatment chair. If you're sitting in this chair as a patient who hasn't even started yet, you can reach behind you and touch the patient who's being treated at the moment. And that was a big leap for me because I don't think many orthodontists would think that's a good idea. And so I thought, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, the worst thing that could happen is I could build a wall. That's not hard to do. And I'd make somebody else pay for it. I'm going to build a wall, somebody else will pay for it. And I haven't had the need to build a wall. This has been an extraordinary and an eye-opening revelation to me. What it does is it disarms people to the point where they feel like there isn't anything that guy must be doing that is painful or needs to be shrouded behind a wall. I think they automatically feel comfortable. In fact, I wanted to do everything different. I wanted the smell to be different. I took away all of my air turbine handpieces, switched them all to electric. That's expensive. That's $5 grand a handpiece. But it doesn't sound like a drill. It was the last remaining part of the puzzle that when people were in this office, they could hear the handpiece. And you know, the sound just makes people's spine tingle. So I said, let's just change them all out. So now you can't really hear the handpieces going. So it really makes a difference when you think about all of the elements that are traditionally thought of when you're thinking of orthodontic treatment or dental treatment in general. This is my consultation room on the right. For 15 years of practice now, I don't do an intraoral exam, never have. I don't need to. There's no reason for me to do an intraoral exam. I have a full set of beautiful photos that I'll talk about in a second. And all of this moves to getting a person to feel comfortable enough to say, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call the ball right now, and I'm going to start today, because I'm absolutely certain this isn't going to get topped. That's my whole point, and not in an arrogant way. You know, when Jamie talks about this a lot, when I go into the consultation room, every single person, even to young adolescents, I never refer to myself as Dr. Graham. I always refer to myself and introduce myself as John. They know I'm a doctor. It's on the front of the building. I don't need to prove to them that I'm a smart guy. I've got some diplomas there, and unless I'm an imposter, they know who I am. And I sit down next to them on the couch, just like we're in a living room. It's really disarming. And I lean back and I'll cross my legs, and there's a big screen. I've already looked at their CT scan, and I've already looked at their photographs, and I'm in there for just a few minutes, ratifying everything that my treatment coordinator has already told the patient. There's a massage room in there with some massage chairs, and many of you do that. I highly recommend getting massage chairs. Now, the ones that you see on the floor here are a little big. They're too big for my office. My office is 2,400 square feet, but I highly recommend it. The ones that I recommend are called iJoy. In fact, if you get on eBay, you can probably get them for about $500. Just when you go to eBay, type in black iJoy. Do not do that in Google. You have been warned. Do it on the eBay search engine, not on Google. And that's all I'm going to say about that. This is the photo room. This is all leading up to why we do same-day starts. I dedicated not only a room to photos, but I wanted the room to look like a Manhattan photo studio. I did that on purpose because the message that I'm sending to my patients is I critically evaluate the aesthetic on every patient. It is my number one driver as an orthodontist. Airway and all the others, they're there. But the aesthetic is the reason for being in my place, and patients start to feel that the second they start getting photos taken in what they would perceive to not just be a photo studio, but a high-end New York photo studio, and it makes a difference. They know that I'm very critical about the results that I'm moving towards. So all of this paints a picture that the patient is reinforced in a way that allows them to feel like I'm home and I don't need to go anywhere else. That's my whole reason for doing that. And the view is beautiful, whether it's snowing or whether it's springtime, looking out over it's Salt Lake City Central Park. It's called Liberty Park, and it's just an extraordinary view. And I'm a minimalist by nature. My home is this way. Everything that I do is minimalistic. Less is more, and there is no question about it. It really makes a difference. Here's the slide I was referring to from Jamie. Most of us like to think that we're service-oriented, and think that we give outstanding customer service, but a Bain & Company analysis demonstrated that only 8% of the customers agree that that particular entity is truly service-oriented. When I say mind-bending service, I'm not giving it lip service. I mean that these patients need to talk about what just happened to me in that office, because it's unlike anything I've ever experienced before. That's truly my goal. Every patient in a long exam or a long appointment gets their hands dipped, even little kids, they get their hands dipped in paraffin wax, and then they have mittens put on to trap the heat, and then they have a cool or a warm eye mask put on. That's important because that gives them permission to fall asleep, because they're already lulled by their warm, nice, smooth, waxed hands. All of these things really make a difference for our patient. This is something that I hesitated putting in my presentation because it's unique to me, I think. A lot of offices give gifts. Burleson talks about giving gifts. I think it's a good idea, but I think it's important to give a gift that means something, not a t-shirt and a mug. Who really cares about a t-shirt and a mug with that guy's practice on it? I wanted to give them something that is meaningful, that they will use for years, and that lets them understand that this, I know they're going to be sore, so I'm going to buy you this. This is like $38. Every single patient that starts has this mailed to their home, unless they live in an apartment, which we find out if they are. If they live in an apartment, we hand it to them at the appointment, but I would rather them, because people steal them, I would rather, this is an 11-piece set, and I think I've bought, I don't know, I've easily bought 3,000 of these over the last few years, but patients over and over again, if you read our Google reviews, you'll see that a lot of them mention the fact that they think that's a very thoughtful thing to give them after they've been given braces. What's the patient psychology of a same-day start? You got to get in their mind. You've got to think about, what are they doing? What did it take to get them there? They had to research you somehow. They certainly had to reach out, either on the web or if they gave you guys a phone call, it doesn't really matter, but they were the ones that initiated this, not you. And you need to remember that, because that puts you in a unique driver's seat. Because if they're the ones that initiated it, it's like a girl asking me out in high school, which never happened, sadly, and I didn't ask them out, so it was a pathetic high school experience. But if they asked me out, listen, I didn't sign up for this, you asked me. It's the same thing. If they have called your office and you don't capitalize on the fact that they are ready to initiate orthodontic treatment and be bold enough to assume that they'll do it today if I ask them, well, then you're missing such a beautiful opportunity. They've put it on their calendar. They have either gotten their child out of school, or they have taken off work, or both, and come to your office, and at the very least, you could provide the courtesy of telling them, if you want to start today, we will make that happen for you, and you can do it in such a non-pushy way that what they perceive is that you are being highly respectful by starting them on the same day, not being a salesperson. They have convinced themselves that their life is about to change. And believe me, they will get cold feet, and you know that. There's a lot of patients. We have a lot of data from Ortho5. And in the spirit of full disclosure, I am an investor in that company from the very first day, because it is a product that I believe in. I don't have a financial coordinator. I haven't had one in 6 years. I don't have that position. That's not a role in my office, because insurance and everything is done by Ortho5. They do all of the insurance claims. Our staff doesn't know how to do an insurance claim because we haven't done one in 6 years. It's extraordinary. The most important thing I think Ortho5 has provided me are real-time, real numbers from real offices that truly bust some of the most common myths that we as orthodontists hold, that were true 15 or 20 years ago that are no longer true. And if you're following the old school thought of categorizing patients into A, B, and C, and desperately trying not to get your C patients, you're insane. Because you're missing a whole group of people that are normal and that pay their bills. But they have convinced themselves they're ready for an opportunity to do ortho. This all ought to give you the feeling that it is not being pushy or being inappropriate in any way to tell them you need to start today. And I can make that happen in the clinic. If you want it, I will go out in the clinic right now and make sure that that happens. This is something Jamie talks about all the time. Be assumptive. Assume they're in your office for a reason. They're not writing a term paper on orthodontists. They're ready to pay somebody, and it might as well be in your office. If you've got the confidence to know that there isn't a better orthodontist in your town, that's not an arrogant thing. There may be others that are as good, but there's nobody better, you know. You've got to have that feeling. If you don't, you need to work to that end. The staff psychology, based on the patient psychology, ought to be this. They need to understand, why in the world wouldn't they start if I asked them to start today? If they wouldn't start, then that's something that's out of my control, but I'll never know that if I don't give them the opportunity. And like Jamie always says, the attitude of the staff needs to be, let's do this, especially your treatment coordinator, not if you decide. If the languaging is around, hey, you're going to have all this information, and you let me know if you've got any questions when you're home discussing it with your family, what you're doing is robbing yourself of a beautiful opportunity to have 100% conversion rate on that patient. And we know this. And when you see the precipitous fall in conversion rates after a patient walks past your threshold back into the real world, it's mind-bending. I'll show you those in just a second. The staff needs to feel the exhilaration of a same-day start. And I don't care how you make that exhilaration happen, they need to feel the exhilaration. Some people incentivize them with a bonus system. You can certainly do that. You have to define what a same-day start is in your office. A same-day start in my office for bonus purposes is not getting an iTero scan, because we didn't do anything to adjust the schedule to do two iTero scanners. We didn't do anything special. But if something needed to be done, some padding needed to be moved around to get somebody in, I think that you need to honor your staff by incentivizing them in one way or another, whether it's cash at the end of the day or whatever, but make it real, make it meaningful. Let them bask in the joy of getting somebody started that wasn't even on the schedule to start. That's critical. And it just needs to make sense for your office. That's why OrthoFi is so important for me, because OrthoFi provides me a peek into the psychology of the patient before they've even walked into the door. I'll show you what I mean in just a second. Our culture is obviously now oriented. We've been saying that. I mean, if I hear somebody say, because of microwave ovens, everybody wants what they want now. If I hear that one more time, I think I'm going to jump off of a tall building. We all know that. That's so obvious. What isn't obvious are the numbers that support that from real offices and real data from OrthoFi. Obviously, a same-day start is 100% conversion rate, right? Obviously. That's different than a same-day contract signing, believe it or not. And I think that's a win if you can get a contract signed on that same day, but that's not 100%. It's not. That's 98.6. That means that there are nearly 2 people out of 10 that'll sign a contract in your office and never show up for whatever reason. They will call and say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do treatment. So it's still great, but it ain't 100%. And that's why that is so critical. And in just a couple of minutes, I'll show you ways, and at least in our office, that make those same-day conversions so easy. So easy to do. Scheduled starts, you've already lost 20% of the people that committed to start in your office, even scheduled the start. Next Thursday, I'd like to get my orthodontic treatment started. There's a 2 out of 10 chance that they're not going to show up. That's concerning to me. For whatever reason, that they don't show up. And how about non-scheduled starts? They walk out of your office, and you've got less than a 50% chance that they're even going to darken your doorstep ever again. That's a cold shower, if you think about the implications on your practice. Because of Jamie, I have these numbers. The second they leave your office, the conversion rate erodes. The adults go faster than the kids. 75 to 80% of those patients will disappear after, 75 to 80% will disappear after that consultation. The longer they simmer out in the real world, the faster they vaporize. That is such an important cultural change in your office. You have to be able to grab those patients. You've got to get them in the first couple of days. If they don't sign up on the day of the practice, you have got about 2 weeks to get them to commit before it becomes the casino's advantage as to whether or not they're going to sign up. You got to gather the information ahead of time. How do you do that? This is how I do it. I do it with Ortho5. Every single patient, before they walk into our office, put some important patient data into our system through Ortho5 online. Some of it is information, some of it is birthday and employment, things like that. But this is the most critical thing for me. And the beautiful thing about this little system is that the patients almost always forget that they gave you this information. And what is the most important for me descriptor on this sliding situation? It's that one. Right there. How interested are you in starting orthodontic treatment within a month? If they put not at all, that changes my calculus just a little bit. If it looks like 3, 4, or 5, well, what that's just done is emboldened me to be a little bit more obvious in the consultation. This is what it looks like to the doctor. This is what I see before I walk into every consultation. I know what's important to them. Comfort, do they want clear, do they want high technology, and hey, are they interested in starting treatment within a month? If you let those patients walk out your door, there is nobody to blame but you. Not a single soul to blame but you. And there are things you can do to make that possible. When we look at a lot of the statistics, this is where it falls. People want quality, they want to be comfortable, they want technology, and they want a low monthly. Notice it didn't say anything about a down payment. They just want a monthly payment that fits in their budget. Even people that are wealthy, and we've got a lot of data on those individuals, believe it or not, they still want low monthly payments. This is how that works. I'm not going to go into the details of it. I would really ask you to visit the folks at Ortho5. But this is what allows the patient the opportunity while they're in your office to factor things that they can't articulate. How much does changing my down payment affect the overall treatment cost? How much does it cost me to extend all the way out and actually pay an APR? Actually pay a finance charge? Guess what? We've got real data. Even people that have very high credit scores, a lot of them are willing to pay an interest rate. And with Ortho5, you split that with Ortho5. The interest rate that's charged, half goes to you, half goes to Ortho5. It's pretty remarkable because people need to make this fit for their budgets. How easy is to do a same-day start? There's a lot of squishiness in everybody's schedule. Whether you think there is or not every single appointment takes all the way to the end of that appointment, and you all know that. You just need to be able to fit them in. What constitutes a same-day start? Well, an iTero scan, if you wish to have it do so, it can. Bond a motion appliance takes our staff 7 minutes to bond an upper and a motion appliance or a lower with the corresponding buttons. We can bond upper 5 to 5, not molars. Think about how quickly it is to bond upper 5 to 5. They have a deep bite, 5 to 5, that's 15 minutes. We can get those guys bonded up and out the door in 15 minutes. We're not going to have breakages because we didn't bond the molars. And if it's a deep bite, they'll just come back later when we have clearance and we'll bond the lowers. Upper and lower 5 to 5 if it's not a deep bite. I want to wrap it up by just emphasizing a slide that Jamie shared with me. Everybody know who this is? That's Gary V. It's Gary Vaynerchuk. Some people know him personally. He's an amazing motivator. You know why he's so amazing? Is because he identifies where the blame lies for all human failure. And it lies here. It is us. We are our own limiting factor, and if we can't self-identify the fact that we're losers, then we're losers. And that's exactly what Gary says. The quickest way to tell someone is a loser is to hear them cast blame. It's someone else's fault. Blame is for losers. It's not your staff's fault. It's not your patient's fault. It is your fault. It is your mindset. It's unbelievable what you can do and the income you can generate by being presumptive enough to assume that they came here because they want orthodontic treatment. You guys are great. Thank you very much.